Have you ever noticed that there are positive and negative streaks in your life that alternate with each other? But I noticed such a regularity and decided to investigate it. It's like yin and yang. In Chinese philosophy, yin and yang represent opposite but complementary forces that are constantly changing each other. This shows the idea that life consists of cycles of change and balance. Imagine you've been working on an important project for a long time and finally finished it. You feel exhausted and stressed, negative emotions. But when your project receives approval and recognition, you feel pride and satisfaction, positive emotions. Or imagine you had a fight with a loved one. You feel anger, resentment, and disappointment, negative emotions. But after you talk and resolve the conflict, you feel relief, joy, and closeness, positive emotions. It seems logical, doesn't it? However, I started noticing that when a day went by calmly and balanced, it remained that way until the end. But if there was a strong emotional charge during the day, whether negative or positive, I noticed a certain pattern. Intense negative emotions were followed by strong positive emotions and vice versa. So it's as if the universe is creating a balance. Intrigued by this pattern, I began to wonder if the brain intentionally balances our emotional state to maintain inner equilibrium. But it turned out to be much more interesting. This led me to conduct an experiment where I recorded my emotions throughout the day, rating their intensity on a specific scale, and then analyzed the results. So I embarked on an experiment. I carried my phone with me, and whenever I experienced a distinct emotion, I recorded it, noting its duration and intensity on a scale from -100, very negative, to 100, very positive. This continued from morning till evening. In the evenings, I calculated a total emotional score for the day by multiplying the intensity of each emotion by its duration. After conducting preliminary experiments, I realized that physical and mental exertion should also be included as negative emotions. This actually became a key factor that I initially overlooked. So, the time came for the main experiment, which lasted for 5 days, starting on a Wednesday. During this period of my life, I was studying in college and attending classes regularly. Here are the results of the first day. Here's the table for the first day. I also included the reason for each emotion for better understanding, but the main focus will be on the total score and the cumulative intensity of all emotions. Adding up all the scores, the total came to -96, with a cumulative intensity of 24,237. Interestingly, throughout the day, I had no idea what the emotional balance was, or how many points were accumulating. I only calculated it in the evening, so I couldn't consciously influence the results. Despite this, the outcome was a near-perfect balance, which really amazed me. So, the second day of the experiment arrived a Thursday, and it unfolded much like the previous day, as reflected in the scores. The day's result was -375, with a cumulative intensity of 25,555. I was very surprised by this consistency and became even more eager to continue the experiment to further confirm the validity of my observations. The results of the third day were even more intriguing. It was Friday and I went out to have fun with friends, which significantly impacted the scores. The day's result was -1,180, with cumulative intensity of 46,310. Due to the high level of activity, the total number of points nearly doubled compared to previous days. However, the balance persisted, with a slight predominance of negative emotions, but still maintaining a near one ratio. However, a closer look at the table for this day reveals 2 entries highlighted in red, with significantly higher point values compared to the average of previous days, and even other emotions on the same day. This is exactly what I had anticipated, and it's precisely what sparked the idea for this theory. In such emotionally charged days, the contrast and intensity of emotions become very noticeable. The fourth day was Saturday, a typical day at home where I did household chores, and this is evident from the table. The score for the day was 660, and the total was 20,305, which still indicates a balance, albeit with a slight margin of human error. The final day of this initial experiment was Sunday, which I also spent with friends, and this is again reflected in the results. The total for the day was -325, with a cumulative intensity of 26,475. We can see that there's a similar balance to Friday, with abnormally high scores being compensated for later in the day. However, the strangest thing is that this doesn't happen chronologically. It's odd to say, but it's as if the brain knows what's coming in the future and deliberately creates this balance. I'll reiterate, this isn't the first time an event has occurred. I felt sad, and only later did the cause appear, due to going out with friends in the future. It's either a bizarre coincidence or something more is happening, which is why I've decided to continue my research. Gathering my resolve, I decided to extend the experiment for another 2 months, and here's what I found. The results showed 2 months of balanced days, confirming my theory, with everything distributed evenly. The total score for the first month was minus 4,087, with a total of 892,522 points. And for the second month, it was minus 2,855, with a total of 806,671 points. However, something quite strange happened during the first month, specifically on days 21, 22, and 23. I noticed an abnormally high number of points, which puzzled me. The positive scores were thousands of points higher than usual. But I didn't dwell on it at the time and moved on with the experiment. But on the following day, day 24, I was unexpectedly hospitalized for 3 days, and this was reflected in the scores. It felt almost magical. How could this be possible? The very thing I had anticipated happened, and the balance was clearly visible, but not within a single day, but over several days. The following month proceeded with balance, and there were no such fluctuations. I was shocked by these results and went searching for information about this online, but I couldn't find any articles specifically about this phenomenon. The closest I found were anecdotal accounts on Reddit, where people shared similar experiences, but nothing scientific about emotional balance. I did find a few articles that measured brain activity in addicts during withdrawal, and they also described a similar kind of balance. The idea that the future could influence the past reminds me of an experiment in quantum physics called the quantum eraser. In this experiment, the act of observing a particle in the future can seemingly erase information about its path in the past, as if the future measurement retroactively changes what happened before. While this is a complex concept in quantum mechanics, there seems to be a parallel with my observations. In the quantum eraser experiment, the act of measurement collapses the wave function of a particle, determining its properties. Similarly, in my experiment, the act of recording and analyzing my emotions at the end of the day seems to have collapsed my emotional state into a balanced outcome, even though the individual emotional events throughout the day were not balanced. Of course, this is just an analogy, and more research is needed to explore the potential connection between quantum phenomena and the workings of the human brain. It's possible that there are other explanations for the observed emotional balance, such as subconscious self-regulation mechanisms or simply random chance. For a more detailed look at my research and findings, you can check out my scientific article, linked in the description below. To delve deeper into this fascinating phenomenon, I need your help. By supporting me on Patreon, you can help fund further research and investigation into this intriguing connection between emotions, time, and the quantum world. Together, we can unlock the secrets of the human brain and its incredible potential.